When I helped a stranger at 3 a.m., the bone-chilling truth changed everything forever. The clock ticked loudly, mocking the silence that filled the dark street. Streetlights flickered, casting ghostly shadows that danced like frenzied spirits. It was 3 a.m. Most were tucked away in their beds, wrapped in dreams, but Alex was out there, moving through the eeriness. The air felt wrong, thick with an unsettling chill that seemed to whisper secrets. He shivered, not from the cold, but from the anticipation of something he couldn't quite shake. Then, like a scene pulled from a low-budget horror film, he saw her. A woman stood alone, her back to him, swaying slightly as if caught in a trance. He couldn't see her face, but her long, dark hair fell like a curtain around her, blocking anything that could reveal more. Instinct kicked in, fear and curiosity battled within him. Why was she there? What was she waiting for? As he approached, that strange energy buzzed around him, sending goosebumps racing down his arms. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out, his voice trembling slightly. She turned slowly. Her eyes, wide and wild, glistened like shards of glass under the harsh light. Behind those eyes lay something deep, something haunting. Had she been crying? There was a palpable silence before she spoke. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "They're watching." Alex's heart raced. Who was watching? And why did his gut twist with dread at her words? Who? Who is watching? He pressed, stepping closer despite the warning bells ringing in his head. Then, just as quickly as she had arrived, she turned back, her form fading into the shadows. Panic surged through him. He couldn't let her go, not like this. But as he reached out for her, she vanished. The air felt different now, heavy, as if the world had conspired to swallow her whole. His heart pounded in his chest. The street felt alive with something sinister, each creak of the pavement echoing ominously like a heartbeat. Doubts flooded his mind. Was this real? Or was he just another fool in a late-night daze? Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the alley, carrying with it a whisper, her voice echoing in the silence. "You shouldn't be here." Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Alex stood frozen, confusion swirling around him. He needed answers. Just then, a faint glow caught his eye. A flicker of light emerged from the nearby abandoned building, casting long shadows. Heart racing, he took a deep breath and approached, fear gripping his throat. What could those shadows hide? With the echo of her voice still haunting him, he felt an urge to uncover the truth, to confront whatever dark forces stirred within that old, crumbling facade. Was it possible the answers he sought were locked away inside? He stepped forward, uncertainty clawing at him. The door to the abandoned building creaked open as Alex pushed it with unease. A cloud of dust billowed out, swirling around him like ghostly hands reaching for something lost. The air inside was stale, almost suffocating, and the flicker of light seemed to dance further within, taunting him with its flickering promise. With hesitant steps, he ventured deeper, each footfall amplifying the unsettling silence. Shadows lurked in the corners, twisting and turning as if alive, feeding off his fear. The glow pulsed, drawing him closer. Somewhere within the gaping maw of the old structure, something was waiting. He could feel it, an electric thrill that sent tingles racing up his spine. "Hello?" His voice cracked, swallowed by the emptiness. No reply came, only the droning buzz of the faint light echoed back. Alex rubbed his arms to ward off the unease creeping into his bones. Suddenly, the light sputtered before stabilizing, illuminating a narrow staircase that spiraled downward. His heart raced. The chill of dread morphed into a compelling urge to know more. He swallowed hard and began his descent. Each step down echoed like a drumbeat, loud and pulsating, as anticipation and worry combined into a thick, tangible fog. Halfway down he paused, struck by the odd sensation of being watched. His breath quickened. Was it just his imagination? Afraid to turn, he forced himself to continue until he reached the bottom, a dark, damp cellar strewn with debris and the scent of decay. The dim glow revealed bricks crumbling against the walls, a testament to forgotten times. Then he saw it, a figure, shrouded in shadows, standing opposite him. His gut twisted tight as recognition flooded over him. "You?" he gasped, heart pounding. It was the woman, the one who had warned him. But something was different. She appeared more ethereal here, her contours flickering like static on a screen. "Alex," she whispered, her voice slicing through the air with crystalline clarity. "You should not have come." "Why? What is happening? Who is watching?" Panic threaded through his words as he stepped closer, drawn by an inexplicable force. "They are closer than you think. You opened a door." Her eyes glimmered with fear and urgency, urging him to turn back. The cellar trembled, dust shaking loose from the ceiling. An ominous sound, a low rumble, rose from the dark corners, making Alex's stomach twist. Desperation laced her next words. "You must leave. Before it's too late." But before he could answer, the shadows around her thickened, swelling like a storm cloud. The walls trembled fiercely, as if something deep inside the depths of the building was awakening. "Run!" she screamed, voice laced with terror. Alex spun around, adrenaline surging, racing towards the staircase as the deafening sound of breaking glass shattered the silence. Fragments cascading down around him like rainbows of chaos. He felt a presence behind him, a dark energy swirling aggressively, hungry for something he didn't have. He was almost up the steps when he heard it, a whisper, chilling and urgent. "You can't escape." The walls echoed the words, the shadows shifting closer, wrapping around him like a vice. His palms grew slick with sweat as he lunged for the door. Was it even real? Or was it another trap? He burst outside, gasping for breath, the cool night air hitting him like a jolt. But his freedom was short-lived. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him, heavy, relentless. Was someone following him? He darted into the night, heart hammering, body fueled by pure instinct. Then it hit him. The flickering presence wasn't just a warning. It was a warning of his own doing. Could he truly escape the consequences of what he unleashed? And as he ran, the ground beneath him began to tremble, an ominous vibration heralding a reality he couldn't fathom. Shadows gathered at the edges of his vision, whispering secrets that only he could hear. What had he opened? What was lurking just beyond the threshold of his understanding? He needed to know. But at what cost? The cold night air rushed past Alex as he sprinted down the empty street. His breath came in hurried gasps, each inhale feeling heavier with each passing second. Panic clawed at his chest. He could still hear those footsteps behind him, relentless and growing louder, like a pulse beating in the darkness. "Why did I go in there?" he thought frantically. The shadows, the warnings, it all felt too real, too close. But why had he ignored her plea? Deep inside, he wondered, was it curiosity or bravado that had drawn him down that staircase? Alex turned sharply around a corner, nearly colliding with a lamppost. The sudden light felt like a lifeline, stark against the darkness swirling behind. He pressed his back against the cool metal, willing himself to be quiet. Forcing his breathing to slow, he listened intently. Silence. It enveloped him, thick and suffocating. But then his heart sank. A low, guttural growl broke through the stillness, echoing off the brick walls like thunder. The sound sent a chill through his limbs, and he instinctively pulled further into the shadows. A figure emerged from the alley across the street, emerging slowly, an unnatural grace seeping into its movements. Eyes glowed in the night, reflective and predatory. It seemed almost human, but held an air that screamed danger. Alex's legs threatened to betray him, his muscles screaming for him to run, but he was frozen in place, a deer caught in headlights. What was it? Something that had crossed from the depths he had uncovered? The woman's warnings flooded back. Had he truly unleashed something vile? The creature cocked its head, as though it sensed him, a twisted grin spreading across its face. Alex's stomach churned. Its eyes glinted with the same shadows that had haunted the cellar. It opened its mouth, revealing sharp, glistening teeth. "You cannot hide from the darkness you've called," it hissed, voice like gravel scraping together. Panicking, Alex bolted again, adrenaline surging as he dashed further into the night, navigating past dumpsters and street signs, zigzagging through the desolate streets. The creature followed, footsteps pounding like a drum, relentless and unforgiving. He had to find help. He didn't know who, but anyone who could believe him. Heart pounding, he raced towards the glowing storefronts of the nearby diner, the neon lights cutting through the darkness, calling to him like a siren. Bursting through the door, he stumbled inside, gasping, eyes wide with fear. The diner was all but empty, save for a middle-aged waitress cleaning tables and an older gentleman nursing a cup of coffee in the corner booth. "Help!" he gasped, the words barely forming as he pointed back into the night, dread pooling in his throat. "What is wrong, hon?" the waitress asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Before he could answer, the door swung open with a crash. The creature stood silhouetted in the doorway, shadows swirling around it like a cloak, eager and hungry. The air shifted, thickening with an oppressive energy. The diner turned eerily silent, the sound of clinking dishes fading as everyone froze in terror. Alex felt the room lock onto that figure, breaths caught like they couldn't escape. "Run!" he shouted, urgency piercing his voice as he turned back to the people in the diner. But where would they go? The creature stepped forward, its body unfurling with a grace that was as beautiful as it was terrifying. Fear gripped everyone in that small space, but Alex fought to rally his thoughts. This wasn't just about him anymore. What if they all were affected? What if they too became entangled in the calamity he had summoned? "Get out," he urged, trying to take charge. But the words tumbled into a void of confusion as he caught the eyes of the waitress. Something flickered there. Recognition? And that S when he noticed the diner was more than it seemed. The shadows were shifting around the periphery, whispering in a language only he could hear. "Alex," she called suddenly, "do you know what you've stumbled into?" He looked back. In that instant, their fates collided. What truth did she know? As the darkness loomed nearer and the reflection of the creature danced in the terrified eyes of the diner patrons, one question echoed in his mind, as loud as his heartbeat. What have I awakened? The answers were out there, tangled in the shadows, and he was running out of time. "Get out!" Alex shouted again, desperation cascading through his voice. The waitress's eyes were wide, an unspoken truth bubbling just below the surface. He could feel every heartbeat in the room, like a countdown, and the creature was inching closer, drawn to the fear that saturated the air. "Alex, please," the waitress said, stepping forward slightly, her voice steady yet edged with urgency. "You need to listen to me. You unleashed something, didn't you?" "What are you talking about?" He shot back, his pulse racing as he glanced from her to the doorway. The creature's presence loomed, its grin widening, sipping from the fear flooding the diner. "Trust me," she explained, the determination in her voice resonating through the mounting chaos. This place, it's a sanctuary for things like that. But it takes a toll on those who enter. The reality of her words crashed into him like a wave. The shadows swirling around him weren't just dark, they were a living entity, feeding on something deep within. "You've got to be kidding me," Alex stammered, dread curling in his gut. "How do we stop it?" Before she could respond, the creature lunged. It tore through the air, teeth snapping. People screamed, panic, chaos erupted. In an instant, Alex felt himself propelled forward, guided by instinct. He reached for the waitress and, without thinking, pulled her along as they raced toward the kitchen door, pushing through the terrified diners, who scrambled in every direction. Running with no plan, they burst into the kitchen, metal clanging around them. The familiar scent of grease and stale coffee hung thick. "We need to barricade ourselves," he shouted, grabbing a heavy metal cart, shoving it against the door, just as the creature slammed into it, rattling the frame. "Why is it coming after me?" he yelled over the din, heart pounding in synchronization with the shakes of the impact reverberating through the kitchen. "Because you opened the door. It senses your fear, your doubt." Her voice radiated a frantic calm. "You need to confront what you unleashed. The wardens of this diner protect us, but only if we are united against the darkness." The creature howled from the other side, teeth grinding against the metal door. It was more animal than anything else, fueled by hunger and rage. Alex felt an overwhelming wave of terror wash over him, but beneath it flickered something else, an ember of defiance. "No more running," he said, turning to the waitress, determination sparking between them. "Tell me how to fight this thing." She nodded, urgency shifting into focus. "We must summon the wardens. They can aid us, but we need to speak its name. Only then can we contain it, before it consumes everything." Alex's mind whirled as he caught the movement of shadows at the edges of his vision, dark tendrils reaching under the door. "What is its name?" I can't say it here. It's too dangerous. It thrives on fear," she cried, glancing nervously at the battering door. But the creature-esque growls had now morphed into a series of haunting whispers echoing his every worst thought. "Then how do we say it?" he pressed, his throat tightening. "Look within yourself," she urged. "Face your fears. Confront the truth of what happened." Alex's breath caught. The shadows around them pulsed, their whispers growing louder, almost mocking him. Memories flooded in both guilt and regret for his reckless choice, for entering that cursed cellar. "I called it." The words came out in a rush, breaking the surface of quiet panic. "I called it with my curiosity, my stupidity." The waitress locked her gaze onto him, her eyes urging him to dig deeper beneath the fear. "And that's how it came to be. Use that power against it. Embrace it." With a deep breath, Alex pushed back the terror, reaching deep into himself, towards the shadows whispering their truths. He understood now that he had a choice. "Enough," he shouted into the kitchen. "You won't take any more from me. I am not afraid of you." Behind the door, the creature paused, its growl turning into a curious hiss. But was that enough? The barriers he'd built in his mind felt weak. Would confronting his fears truly summon the wardens? Would darkness bow to his reclaimed strength? As the growls continued to resonate, an unsettling silence blanketed the kitchen. He felt the slow strengthening of shadows around him, as if awaiting his next command. "Can I defeat it?" he wondered, flickering uncertainty gnawing at his resolve. He could feel the tension mounting in the air. The next moment was crucial, but what would come of his choice? The kitchen air crackled with an intense energy, thick with fear and the smell of old oil. Alex stood, chest heaving, every muscle tensed as he faced the door. The creature's breaths were heavy, a feral rhythm that seemed to echo in the deepest chambers of his mind, amplifying his insecurities. "Are you ready?" the waitress asked, her voice cutting through the haze of dread that surrounded him. She kept her gaze steady, those eyes holding something deeper, maybe hope, maybe desperation. The moment lingered, the shadowy tendrils still creeping under the door, as if they were listening. Yeah, Alex swallowed hard, fighting the lump in his throat. I have to be good. Now focus, she said. Feel the fear, but don't let it control you. The creature slammed against the barricade once more, rattling the cart he had pushed in place. The echo of the impact bounced off the metal surfaces, creating an unsettling rhythm like a countdown to something inevitable. Alex closed his eyes, shutting out the chaos. He delved deep inside, confronted by images of the cellar, decomposing memories of his reckless curiosity that led him here. I wanted to know what was down there, what secrets it held, he gasped, his voice barely audible. But I was too blind to see the danger. Say its name, the waitress urged, her tone edged with urgency. Face the truth? The names of countless whispers clawed at the edges of his consciousness, threatening to pull him under. Yet, amidst the chaos, the name he barely recognized surfaced, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Gloomshroud. Alex shouted, the word ripping from him like a fierce wind. The impact on the door ceased immediately. A monstrous stillness hung in the air, suffocating and surreal. For a second, disbelief tethered him to the ground. Had it felt his resolve? Had the shadows withdrawn? But no. A low, rumbling growl cracked the silence. Gloomshroud was responding. The waitress glanced at him, relief and trepidation mingling in her features. It heard you. Now we have to hold on. Just as Alex processed her words, the lights flickered above, casting shifting shadows across the kitchen. He could feel the energy shifting, the dark entity consolidating its power. Something was igniting within those shadows, a blurring cyclone of malice and hunger. Remember, we have to summon the wardens, she urged as the air thickened and pulsed. Hold on to the truth. You must believe in their strength. Heat rushed through his veins. He felt the pressure of the shadows enveloping him, but he retained that ember of defiance. I called it. I am responsible. The frail weight of guilt lifted into clarity, transforming into something tangible, a protective shield around him. And suddenly, the air trembled. A flash of light erupted from the shadows, swirling toward them as if responding to his declaration. Crystalline forms, glimmering silhouettes began breaking through the darkness, each one radiating a sense of calm strength. Yes, the waitress shouted, her voice laced with triumph. That's it. They're coming. But Gloomshroud reacted with ferocity, a howl escaping its massive throat. The walls trembled, dishes rattling violently, as if the diner itself shuddered in fear. Shadows swirled in a frenzy, morphing into thicker figures that reached toward Alex and the waitress, venomous and insatiable. Stay strong, she warned, eyes wide. Don't let the darkness consume you. With narrowed focus, Alex poured his energy into the newly summoned wardens. They flickered, tentative yet resolute, grasping for form and substance as they clashed against Gloomshroud's grotesque silhouette. The din of struggle filled the kitchen, overwhelming and consuming every thought as he felt the tension pop in the air. Come on, he shouted, drawing on the core of who he was, pushing outward against the chaos. We can do this together. For a split second, the swirling intensity brought silence. Everything halted, the creeping shadows, the creature's growl, even time itself living in that moment of suspension. But outside that silence, something shifted in the heart of Gloomshroud. What lay beneath that monstrous exterior? The thought clawed at him, a question that demanded an answer, and as his heart raced, Alex wondered what would happen if he faced not just its name, but what truly shaped Gloomshroud itself. What might be revealed in that confrontation? The shadows surged as if sensing his hesitation. Would darkness overshadow light again? With his resolve flickering like a candle against a storm, Alex knew he had to act and fast. The ground shook under the weight of Gloomshroud's fury. Alex felt that sickening churn in his stomach, a mix of fear and adrenaline. The shadows writhed, a swirling mass of despair and malevolence. It seemed alive, every tendril reaching for him, demanding to snuff out the light he had just barely summoned. "Look deeper," the waitress yelled, her voice barely piercing through the chaos. "What do you really see?" Alex clenched his fists, his heart thundering. He looked again, focusing on Gloomshroud's form. It wasn't he just a monster. It was a collage of his fears, his regrets, his unhealed wounds. It was everything he'd tried to bury. "I see," he started, his voice breaking. "I see pain." He took a shaky breath. "I see hopelessness." The shadows hesitated momentarily, almost recoiling at the truth. "What else?" she urged, eyes locked onto him, willing him to dig deeper. "Gloomshroud, it's not just a creature. It's a reflection of what we ignore. The darkness we don't confront." The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, echoing through the kitchen like a spark of light in the gloom. Fingers of darkness grasped for him, but began to falter, losing their grip. His voice grew stronger. "If I let go of my fear, if I accept my past, then the darkness loses its power over me." But Gloomshroud roared, a furious rejection of Alex's newfound resolve. Scraping against the walls, its grotesque shadows formed spikes, ready to pierce through anything that stood in its way. The wardens wavered, flickering like candles caught in a gust, struggling to maintain their form. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. Could he really do this? The stakes were higher than he ever imagined. This was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming his strength and maybe even saving the waitress, whoever she was. "Stand with me," he screamed, rallying everything he had left. The wardens responded, their shimmering forms brightening, coming together around him like a shining fortress. As Gloomshroud lunged, a terrifying scream tore through the air, filled with rage and desperation. Its massive jaws opened wide, a vortex of darkness ready to swallow them whole. But Alex stood firm, his body encased in the very light he'd summoned. He embraced his flaws, his failures, and in that act, he felt a remarkable shift happening within him. The kitchen surged with light. The wardens absorbed the shadows, drawing upon their strength and resisting the overwhelming tide of Gloomshroud. With a deep breath, Alex stepped closer, a reckless hope igniting his spirit. "We're not afraid of you. We will shine," he declared, each syllable fueled by clarity and purpose. The creature hesitated again, its form flickering between monstrous and ethereal. Alex could see something shift behind its eyes, a glimmer that suggested more than mere rage. Something ancient and tragic, festering and lost. "Face it. What do you want?" he demanded, voice steady against the storm. For a heartbeat, everything paused. Alex, the wardens, even Gloomshroud. The world held its breath. And just as Alex thought he might reach that creature, he felt something, a pulse in the air, a message on the edge of darkness, tantalizing and haunting. "It desires," he whispered softly, the words unfolding like a dark flower. A deep shadow rippled through the kitchen, silencing the clamoring din and enthralling him with dread. The shadows seemed to seal up tighter, anticipating a revelation. Gloomshroud twisted again, claws scratching the floor as it sought to hide its truth. What did Gloomshroud truly desire? Was it just pain, or something deeper? "Don't turn away now," the waitress urged, fear flashing across her face. But before Alex could grasp the full meaning, something unexpected happened. A crack of thunder reverberated, and the lights went out, plunging them into unearthly darkness. The last glimpse of light flickered from the wardens, leaving Alex feeling exposed and vulnerable. And in that terrifying void, he could feel the weight of Gloomshroud closing in again, heavy and oppressive. What was this creature really hiding? What? Truth still lingered in the shadows, So close yet so far from his understanding? With a pulse racing in his ears, Alex braced himself for whatever lay ahead, knowing he was standing at the very brink of deciding his fate. And then he heard a voice, soft, pleading. Help me! What did that voice mean? Who was it calling? The darkness enveloped Alex like a suffocating blanket, the air thick with dread. He squinted, trying to find the source of the anguished voice. The icy tendrils of Gloomshroud brushed against his skin, a warning of the danger lurking just beyond sight. Who is there? He called out, his voice trembling with the effort to remain composed. In response, the shadows inched closer, a low growl reverberating through the room. It was a sound of hunger, of desperation. His heart raced, the beat hammering against his rib cage, like a caged animal straining to escape. Help me! The voice echoed again, clearer this time. It resonated within him, igniting something lost, something buried deep. It was more than a cry for help. It was a plea that tangled with his own memories, a reminder of his own failures. With every ounce of resolve, Alex shouted into the void. I'm here. I'll help you. As if responding to his determination, Gloomshroud lunged at him again. He could taste the bitterness of fear in his throat, but he pushed it down, refusing to back away. Each step forward felt monumental, the shadows crackling with rage at his defiance. The waitress's voice broke through the darkness like a sliver of silver lining. You have to believe. Show it your light. Show it who you truly are. He focused on the glowing wardens, grounding himself in their warmth. He thought of the moments he held onto too tightly, the nights spent alone, the dreams left unfulfilled, the relationship strained by his own insecurities. It all flooded back, a ripple of remorse washing over him. But at that moment, he felt a shift. It was time to let go. I am more than my fears, he roared, each word igniting the air around him. I am not afraid of the shadows. They don't define me. The kitchen illuminated for an instant, the light unraveling the dense darkness. The wardens pulsed, feeding off his courage, and the shadows recoiled, surprised by the wave of brightness. Help me! The voice stirred again, tender and hopeful, pulling Alex closer to the truth that Gloomshroud was burying. What had caused this creature to be born of fear? What pain had twisted it so? Then, as if peeling back layers of a fragile onion, Alex realized something profound. You're not just my monster, he breathed, eyes wide. You're a part of me. A part that needs healing. The response was immediate. Gloomshroud shrieked, its form writhing as if torn between two realities. The mournful wail echoed like thunder in his ears, and shook the very walls of the kitchen. Shadows rippled violently in response to the revelation, splintering and cracking, revealing glimmers of light etched into their foreboding substance. No! It can't be! The waitress gasped, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and revelation. You've touched something raw within it. I know you, Alex continued, his voice softer now, filled with compassion. You've carried this burden alone, but you don't have to. I understand your pain. Let me help you. Let us face it together. At those words, something shifted inside Gloomshroud. Its cries morphed into a haunting mixture of sorrow and rage, and for just a moment, Alex caught a glimpse of its true form, a figure half-formed, trembling, in desperate need of light and acceptance. The shadows thrashed, but in that chaos, a fire ignited. Suddenly, the shadows around him surged, swirling as if considering their next move. Terror mingled with a strange sense of freedom. Alex felt an exhilarating pulse of anticipation. But before he could extend his light further into Gloomshroud's tortured heart, the ground trembled violently again. This wasn't an ordinary quake. It felt like the earth itself was in agony. Alex's thoughts raced. Was something awakening? Something more dangerous than Gloomshroud itself? In that moment, something deep within him flickered a warning. The voice, once gentle, now echoed louder, more insistent. Help me, and as darkness threatened to swallow what brightness remained, he heard a new voice, deeper, more resonant. It's time to choose. What choice was he being asked to make? Would he have the strength to face whatever lay ahead? The trembling of the ground intensified, sending vibrations up Alex's legs. His feet felt anchored, yet he wanted to bolt. The shadows seemed to thicken with every tremor, the air crackling with an electric charge of impending doom. What was rising? The question pulsed in his mind, like the warning beat of a war drum. Choose. The deeper voice rolled again, reverberating through his core. Choose what? Alex glanced around. The darkness was suffocating, but he could see flickers of light, his inner warmth battling gloom shroud, inch by inch. He was standing at the cliff's edge of his own fears, staring into an abyss that whispered promises of power, but threatened to swallow him whole. Stay strong, urged the waitress, her eyes wide, reflecting a quiet desperation. The darkness seeks to divide you. Don't let it. The ground shook again, echoing with primal urgency. Alex steadied himself, clenching his fists. He had faced his demons in the past, but never like this. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for Gloomshroud too. A dark companion who had manifested from pain and solitude. Help me, the voice pleaded anew, trembling but resolute. As fragments of his memories stirred, Alex saw the faces of loved ones torn apart by his insecurities, their disappointment carving wounds deeper than any physical harm. This was no longer just about him. It was about healing the unseen scars, the fractures that had long belittled his spirit. Together, he shouted. No more hiding. We rise together. Suddenly, Gloomshroud leapt forward, a howling tempest of darkness, raging against the light. Alex could feel the cold breath of its anguish, a visceral threat that paralyzed him with doubt. Fear lurked behind him like a shadow, clawing to reclaim its hold. But something shifted within him. The very air shimmered with possibilities. Embrace it, the waitress urged, her voice rising above the chaos. You hold the power. With a primal roar echoing in the cavernous kitchen, Alex focused. He took a breath, drawing upon the glowing wardens. He pictured each regret, each failure, twisting them into sparks of raw light. Each moment transformed into a beacon, illuminating paths that lay hidden in darkness. He surged forward, feelers of connection stretching out toward Gloomshroud, reaching into the frayed edges of the creature's being. I see you, he declared fiercely, the warmth radiating from him fused with the air like fire igniting grasslands. But Gloomshroud fought back, writhing and twisting, as if struggling against an inevitable fate. It shrieked, and in that anguished sound came both despair and a flicker of hope, like a candle fighting a storm. The shadows around him flickered, torn between light and dark. Then, a piercing scream ripped through the air, startling him. His heart dropped. It wasn't just Gloomshroud that wailed. It came from somewhere deeper, an otherworldly sound that struck at his soul. No! He shouted, fear clutching at him, icy fingers gripping his spine, paralyzed by the haunting cry. Behind him, a new threat stirred. The very walls of the kitchen began to tremble, warping forward as if a monstrous figure was about to burst forth from the shadows. The darkness twisted again, revealing serpentine figures swirling, each one more grotesque than the last, conjured by the chaos around them. Alex, the waitress shouted, fear lining her face as the unknown terror approached. In that heart-stopping moment, he felt the weight of choice pressing down on him, the courage to fight for Gloomshroud, or to turn and confront the terror ready to dive straight into his worst nightmares. What would he choose? Would he stand and confront the shadows, or would he flee from the truth hiding in plain sight? Time twisted, and just as he made up his mind, the ground shook once more, sending him sprawling to the floor. The question hung heavy in the air. Was this the end or just the beginning? The tremor subsided, but the air buzzed with tension. Alex lay on the ground, his breath quickening as he struggled to rise. The kitchen was a war zone, chaos erupting around him. Shadows danced like wraiths, and the grotesque figures lurked, their serpentine forms slithering closer, hungrily bearing witness to his despair. "Get up!" the waitress screamed, her voice laced with urgency. "Don't let them take you." He scrambled to his feet, heart racing. Gloom Shroud was still there, but Alex sensed a change. The creature's anguish was mirrored in his own. Anger surged through him, igniting a fire he hadn't felt in ages. "No more," he roared, every ounce of pain and frustration fueling his words. "I am not afraid." The shadows pulsed, momentarily retreating, as if intimidated by the potency of his defiance. For a split second, vibrant warmth filled the room, pushing back against the cold tendrils of Gloom Shroud. It flickered like a dying flame, and Alex felt the energy draining from his body. "Listen to me," he urged, turning to Gloom Shroud, trying to consolidate both their fears into a single command. "I won't abandon you." A hollow laugh emanated from the swirling darkness. "You think you can change me? I am the embodiment of despair, and despair is unshakable." "No!" he yelled, grounding himself against the oppressive weight of that simple declaration. "You may thrive on despair, but you can also rise from it. Together, we can reshape this." The serpentine shadows paused, their movements faltering, as if thrown off balance by his conviction. The waitress stepped closer, eyes gleaming with conviction. "You're on the brink, Alex. Embrace the light that is still inside you." As her words sank in, Alex thought of the faces from his past, the friends lost to his retreat into darkness. The very faces he had sworn to protect, yet had allowed his fears to put barriers between them. It was time to shatter those boundaries. Generating all of the love he had for them, Alex drew it forth fiercely, summoning light from within. It glimmered and shimmered, finally bursting forth in a dazzling wave that jolted through the shadows like a thunderclap. The room lit up, blinding him for a moment as his heart beat like a war drum. Gloom Shroud, facing the luminescence, began to unravel. The dark tempest of its form softened, the anguish transforming into whispers. Alex felt a connection form, threads of empathy weaving between them, as his light battled the tendrils of doom. "No, no!" the shadows echoed, losing cohesion as they started to disintegrate. But new figures sprang into view, monstrous and fierce, forming from the darkness. They were cloaked in malice and chaos, their eyes gleaming with a savage hunger. "What now?" Alex gasped, the warmth flickering as he felt the shadows trying to reclaim their hold on him. He stumbled back, fear colliding with the edge of hope. A dagger of despair stabbed through him, as Gloom Shroud writhed in uncertainty between light and shadow. "You must choose." It shrieked again, and for the first time, Alex sensed the hesitance underneath its words, an echo of fear that mirrored his own. "Choose what?" he bellowed, frustration boiling over. "Dare to face your own depths. Accept the truth." The serpentine beasts lunged at him, arms outstretched, their raspy voices coiling around him like chains. The darkness threatened to consume him, skeletal fingers wrapping tighter and tighter. Time wobbled, and Alex's resolve surged once more. "I will not let fear decide my fate." He broke through their grasp, pushing the light up and out. With a blinding explosion, the world detonated with blinding light, reawakening him to the battlefield around him. But just as Gloom Shroud began to dissolve, the shrieking shadows reached back, growing fangs to snatch away the light that surged from him. A new surge drowned the room, a terrible ripping sound, only punctuated by the cry of despair. The walls trembled anew, each thud interlacing with Alex's heartbeat as he stumbled, standing on the edge of dark and light. Then, the ground quaked and split beneath him, collapsing under the weight of the battle. As he gripped the precipice, the shadows clawed at his legs, pulling him down into a void of torment. But in that excruciating moment, as the abyss opened wide, he understood the weight of his choice fully. "Alex!" The waitress screamed, her voice laced with terror as she reached for him. Would he grasp her hand, or would he let the darkness take him? The question reverberated through his mind, mixing with the haunting echoes of his past, and suddenly, everything went black. The weight of silence fell heavily around Alex as he lay in the dark, that suffocating void pressing against him. Memories flashed before his eyes, like unwelcome ghost faces of friends he had lost. Moments of joy turned sour, and the shadows of his own fears that had long overshadowed his life. He felt himself falling, lost in the depths of despair, but deep within, a spark ignited. "Help me," the voice echoed again, and with it came a fierce rush of warmth. The fog of darkness began to lift, and he sensed something a tether pulling him towards the light. Alex gasped, lungs filling with air, the taste of fear and regret mingling into something almost tangible. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for every piece of light he had ignored, every shadow he allowed to grow unchecked. In that defining moment, clarity crashed over him. He wasn't just facing Gloomshroud. He was confronting his own demons, the pain he had buried deep down, the darkness he had allowed to flourish. With every ounce of strength, Alex pushed against the chains of despair. "I am not afraid." His voice boomed into the void, resonating with a power he hadn't recognized before. Light erupted from his center, glowing fiercely, pushing away the shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. The pulsating energy spread like wildfire, illuminating the darkness and tearing through the confines of fear. He felt the chains shatter, felt the screeches of Gloomshroud resonate as it recoiled beneath the combined power of the light and his newly solidified resolve. "You don't control me," he shouted, determination surging through him like a river of fire. "I claim this power. I face my truth." The shadows darted back, coiling and retreating, howling in mock disbelief as they dissolved into wisps. They wouldn't claim him, not now. Not ever again. Gloomshroud wilted under the intensity, each roar of despair surrendering to a wave of luminous force. Suddenly, the waitress's figure emerged through the brightening aura, her eyes shining with hope. "You've done it, Alex. Now, together, we can seal it away." With renewed purpose, Alex reached toward Gloomshroud. He envisioned all the pain and sorrow that had birthed the creature, turning his heart toward compassion rather than fear. "You're not just the darkness, you're part of me. But I choose to rise, not to fall." The creature writhed, dragging existence back and forth, unwilling to release its hold. But Alex stood firm. He wrapped his thoughts around the truth, acknowledging his darkness didn't mean he had to embody it. And as he shouted, "Gloomshroud, leave me. Leave this place." The shadows splintered, each fragment dancing on the edge of his words, like sparks dancing in the wind. The ground trembled beneath them, the heartbeat of the diner sinking with the pulse of light surging from Alex. A powerful wave summoned forth the wardens, flickering into reality, coalescing around him, ready to fight alongside his newfound resolve. Alex focused, pouring his heart into the glow, a torrent of light cascading forth, touching the remnants of Gloomshroud's raw form, intertwining with everything he had ever felt. "Let me help you heal." For a brief moment, Gloomshroud hesitated, responding to the compassion woven through Alex's fierce determination. The chaotic screeches surrendered to something softer, a deep, guttural exhale of weariness. Shadows melted under the intensity of Alex's resolve, transforming into something softer, a mist, a whisper of all that had been lost. As the final tendrils fell away, the whole room erupted in light, filling the cramped kitchen with warmth. The creature shuddered, slowly losing its grotesque shape, transforming into a flickering image, the scared girl Alex had first seen that night, her eyes wide with fear, but now glimmering with hope. "I see you, Alex said gently, stepping forward. You don't have to be alone anymore. In that breath of connection, the surrounding shadows faded into nothingness. Gloom shrouded as form dimmed, shedding years of anguish and loneliness. A quiet acceptance filled the void, leaving only a familiar glow. An echo of pain turned into power. Trembling yet free, Alex felt the world shift again as the shadows released their tight grip on reality. Sunlight poured through the diner windows, warm and inviting as the oppressive darkness transformed into light, illuminating the tragedy into a lesson shared between weary souls. The waitress smiled, relief flooding her features. You faced it with love instead of fear. And now it is gone. Breathless yet fulfilled, Alex turned back to the doorway, affirming the real beginning of his journey. He could hear the laughter outside, the normalcy returned. Thank you, he whispered to the woman. As sunlight streamed in, he stepped outside, leaving behind shadows and stepping into a world reborn, a world made brighter not just by magic, but from facing the truth, fully embracing every part of himself, fear and all. Together, he and the waitress walked toward the day, both ready for whatever lay ahead. And as they made their way into the light, a final whisper echoed in Alex's heart. Never walk away from the truth again. If you've made it to the end of this wild journey, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe now, because you don't want to miss any future exclusive stories, trust me. Smash that like button now, it helps the algorithm feast on the good stuff. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from you, the real fans who understand. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your support drives this community. Let us keep creating magic together.